The Great Hall was bigger than any building on Earth. It floated in the darkness of space, a station made of crystal and metal that could hold 1,000,000 beings. Today, it held exactly 847, one representative from each spacefaring civilization in the known galaxy. They had come to decide the fate of a small blue planet called Earth. Admiral Una Park stood alone in a small observation room, watching the assembly through a glass wall. She was the first human to ever set foot on this station. She was also the only human the galaxy had ever invited to speak. But today, they had not asked her to speak. Today, they had asked her to listen. The alien who led the assembly was called the High Chancellor. His body was tall and thin, covered in gray scales. His eyes were black and showed no emotion. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire hall like thunder. "The matter before us is simple," the High Chancellor said. 200 cycles ago, the species called humans discovered fire. 100 cycles ago, they built machines. 50 cycles ago, they split the atom. 10 cycles ago, they reached their moon. 5 cycles ago, they broke the light barrier and joined the stars. He paused. The hall was completely silent. No species in recorded history has advanced this fast. Our scientists have studied them. Our analysts have run every projection. The conclusion is unanimous. A holographic display appeared above the hall. It showed a graph with a single line shooting upward like a rocket. The line was labeled Human Technological Growth. Within 5 generations, humans will surpass every civilization in this assembly. Within 10 generations, they will be beyond our ability to measure. Within 20 generations. The High Chancellor did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. They are not just a threat, he continued. They are the threat. The greatest danger this galaxy has ever faced. Not because of what they have done, but because of what they will become. Una felt her heart beating hard in her chest. She had known this meeting would be difficult. She had prepared speeches, arguments, evidence of humanity's peaceful intentions. But as she watched the faces of the 847 representatives, she saw something that made her blood run cold. They were afraid. All of them. Beings from worlds that had existed for millions of years, civilizations that had conquered physics itself. They were all terrified of her people. "The Assembly will now vote," the High Chancellor announced. "The question is simple. Should the human homeworld be cleansed?" One by one, the representatives cast their votes. Una watched the numbers climb on the display. Yes, yes, yes. 847 votes for. 0 votes against. The decision was unanimous. "The motion passes," the High Chancellor said. "A cleansing fleet of 12,000 warships will be assembled. The human homeworld will be sterilized within 47 standard cycles. This session is concluded." The representatives began to leave. Some of them glanced at Una as they passed. A few looked sorry. Most looked relieved. None of them stopped to speak with her. Una stood frozen for a long time after the hall emptied. Her mind could not process what had just happened. The entire galaxy, every civilization, every species, every world had just voted to kill her planet. Not because humans had attacked anyone, not because humans had threatened anyone, but because humans learned too fast, because humans adapted too well, because humans might become something dangerous someday. She walked slowly back to her ship. It was a small vessel, barely big enough for one person. Earth's best engineers had built it in secret. Using technology they had reverse engineered from alien probes, it could cross the galaxy in days. The Assembly did not know this. If they did, they would have voted even faster. As she sat in the pilot's chair, Una finally let herself cry. She thought of her parents in Busan, her sister in Seoul, her niece, who had just started school. She thought of the billions of people on Earth who were going about their ordinary lives, not knowing that the universe had already signed their death warrant. Then she dried her tears and started typing. The message was short. It went directly to Earth Command, encoded in a cipher that no alien technology could break. It contained only the essential facts: the vote, the fleet, the timeline. 47 days until the end of the world. At the bottom, she added a personal note for General Tae-Ki-wan, the commander of Earth's defense forces. They had known each other since the academy. He was the closest thing she had to family in the military. "They are afraid of us," she wrote. "Not because of what we are, but because of what we might become. They have decided to kill us before we have the chance to prove them wrong. I am sorry I could not change their minds. I am coming home. Whatever we decide to do next, I want to be there with our people." She sent the message and engaged the engines. The stars blurred around her as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. In 3 days, she would be home. In 44 days after that, 12,000 warships would arrive to burn everything she loved. As she traveled through the void between stars, Yuna thought about the High Chancellor's words. He had called humanity the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. He had shown graphs and projections and scientific data. He had convinced 847 civilizations that humans must die, but he had made one mistake. He had assumed that humans would react the way every other species had reacted when faced with extinction. He had assumed they would fight, or flee, or beg for mercy. He did not know humans very well. Yuna did not know it yet. But in a bunker beneath Seoul, a young captain named Junho Lee was about to ask a question that would change everything. And in a laboratory hidden in the mountains, a scientist named Sora Han was looking at weapons that could tear the galaxy apart and wondering if there was another way. The countdown had begun. 47 days until the fleet arrived. 47 days to decide the future of humanity. The galaxy had made its choice. Now it was humanity's turn. The bunker was cold and quiet. It sat 200 meters beneath the streets of Seoul, built to survive nuclear war. Now it would have to survive something much worse. General Tae-Ki-wan stood at the head of a long table. Around him sat the most important people on Earth: presidents, generals, scientists, and diplomats from every nation. They had come in secret, leaving behind their public duties to face a truth that could not be shared with the world. "Not yet. You have all read Admiral Park's report," General Tae said. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. 12,000 warships. 44 days. Our entire fleet numbers 300 ships. Most of them are not designed for combat. The room was silent. Everyone had done the math. It was not complicated. 12,000 against 300. The galaxy had sent enough firepower to destroy Earth 40 times over. "We have options," the general continued. "None of them are good." He pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed 3 words: fight, flee, surrender. If we fight, we die. Our ships are fast, but they cannot defeat an armada. We might destroy 100 of their vessels, maybe 200. Then they will burn our planet to ash. He moved to the next option. If we flee, we abandon Earth. We load as many people as we can onto colony ships and scatter across the galaxy. Some of us might survive. Most will not, and those who do will spend the rest of their lives running. The display shifted again. If we surrender, we throw ourselves on their mercy. The Assembly has never shown mercy to a condemned species before. But perhaps they will make an exception. Perhaps they will only enslave us instead of killing us. A bitter laugh came from somewhere at the table. No one smiled. "General," a voice said. It was Dr. Sora Han, the lead scientist of Project Prometheus. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She looked like she had not slept in days. General Tae nodded slowly. "I was hoping we would not have to discuss that." Sora stood up and walked to the display. She pressed several buttons, and the hologram changed. It now showed blueprints for machines that looked like nothing natural. Twisted metal, impossible angles, equations that hurt to look at. "For the last 30 years, my team has been working on theoretical weapons," she said. Technologies based on principles the galaxy has not yet discovered. We call it Project Prometheus. She pointed to the first blueprint. This is a gravitational compressor. It can collapse a star into a black hole. One device can destroy an entire solar system. She pointed to the second. This is a dimensional tear generator. It opens a hole in the fabric of space itself. Anything that enters the hole is erased from existence. Not killed. Erased. As if it never existed. She pointed to the third. This is a cascade bomb. It causes a chain reaction in the nuclear forces that hold matter together. One bomb could sterilize 100 light years. In every direction. The room had gone completely silent. People were staring at the blueprints with horror on their faces. We never built these weapons, Sora said quietly. We hoped we would never need to. We hoped humanity would be better than this. She looked around the table. But if we build them now, we can win. We can destroy the cleansing fleet. We can destroy the assembly. We can burn the galaxy to ash and start over. Her voice broke. We can become exactly what they fear we are. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the decision hung in the air like a physical thing. Save humanity by becoming monsters. Die as innocents, or live as killers. There was no middle ground. Then a young man at the end of the table raised his hand. He wore the uniform of a captain in Earth's defense forces. His name was Junho Lee, and he was only 32 years old. Most of the people in the room did not know who he was. Permission to speak, sir, he said. General Tay nodded. Go ahead, Captain. Junho stood up slowly. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. 5 years ago, I lost my family in the first contact skirmishes. My wife, my daughter, they were on a research station that got caught in the crossfire when we first met the Assembly scouts. He paused. I have every reason to want revenge. I have dreamed of burning their worlds the way they burned my family. I have hated them with every part of my heart. He looked around the room. But what would that make us? If we destroy them, if we become the monsters they think we are, then they were right to fear us. They were right to want us dead. We will have proven that humanity deserves to be erased. He took a deep breath. What if we don't fight them? What if we save them instead? Someone laughed. Others stared at him like he was insane. But General Tay held up his hand for silence. Explain, the general said. Junho walked to the display. They fear us because we learn fast, because we adapt, because we grow. They think that power can only be used to destroy. His eyes were bright now, filled with something that might have been hope. What if we show them they're wrong? What if we use everything we are, all our knowledge, all our strength, all our ability to grow, to help them instead? The room erupted in arguments. Some called him a fool. Some called him a coward. Some said he was asking humanity to commit suicide with extra steps. But Admiral Una Park, who had been silent since she arrived, stood up and walked to Junho's side. I was there when they voted to kill us, she said. I saw the fear in their eyes. They don't hate us. They're just afraid. She looked at the blueprints of the weapons that could end the galaxy. Then, she looked at Junho. Maybe it's time to give them a reason not to be afraid anymore. The debate would last for 3 more days. But in that moment, something shifted. A seed was planted, and humanity began to choose its path. The cleansing fleet arrived on the 47th day, exactly as promised. 12,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. They formed a wall of metal and fire that stretched across the darkness of space. Each ship was the size of a city. Each ship carried enough weapons to crack a planet in half. The fleet commander was an ancient being named Vorun. He had led 17 cleansing operations in his long life. He had burned worlds, boiled oceans, and turned civilizations to dust. He felt nothing when he did these things. It was simply his duty. The assembly commanded, and he obeyed. As his flagship moved toward Earth, Vorun studied the scanner reports. He expected to see defensive platforms, weapon arrays, desperate last stands. Every condemned species fought in the end, even the weak ones, even the hopeless ones. It was the nature of living things to struggle against death, but the scanners showed nothing. No weapons, no defenses, no fleet formations, only empty space between his armada and the small blue planet. "Commander," one of his officers said, "we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from a single vessel, directly ahead." "A single vessel?" Vorun frowned. "What kind of vessel?" "Unknown design. Small. It appears to be. Unarmed. One." Vorun's frown deepened. "Show me." The view screen changed to show a tiny ship floating alone in the void. It was barely larger than a shuttle. Its hull was smooth and white, with no visible weapons or shields. Painted on its side, in the universal trade language, were two words: "Open hand." "This is Ambassador Minji Quan of Earth," a voice said over the communication channel. It was a female voice, calm and clear. "I am here to deliver humanity's response to the Galactic Assembly." Vorun's officers exchanged confused glances. This was not how condemned species behaved. This was not how anyone behaved. "Speak," Vorun commanded. "We know why you have come," Minji said. "We know you fear what we might become. We understand. In your place, we might fear us too." She paused. "But you have made a mistake. You have assumed that because we can grow powerful, we will use that power to harm. You have looked at us and seen only what we might take from you. You have not considered what we might give." A data stream began flowing from her ship. Vorun's technicians scrambled to analyze it. "We are transmitting to you now a complete database of every technological advancement humanity has made in the past 100 years, Minji continued. "Medical breakthroughs that could extend your lifespans by centuries. Engineering designs that could rebuild your crumbling infrastructure. Agricultural techniques that could feed your starving colonies. Energy systems that could power your worlds for millennia." She let that sink in for a moment. "We give this to you freely. Not as tribute. Not as surrender. As a gift. Because you are afraid of what we might become. And we want to show you what we choose to be." Vorun stared at the data flowing across his screens. His technicians were whispering urgently to each other. The information was real. It was revolutionary. It was worth more than 100 conquered worlds. "This is a trick," Vorun said. "You are trying to buy time." "Time for what?" Minji asked. "Your fleet is 12,000 ships. Ours is 300. If we wanted to fight, we would already be dead. If we wanted to flee, we would already be gone. We are still here because we want to talk." She took a deep breath. "Fleet Commander, humanity has a message for the Galactic Assembly. You have spent 3,000 years building an empire based on fear. You conquer because you are afraid of being conquered. You destroy because you are afraid of being destroyed. You sentenced us to death because you are afraid of what we might become." Her voice grew stronger. "But fear is not strength. Fear is a cage that traps you inside your own nightmares. And we refuse to be trapped." Behind her, across the galaxy, something was happening. Vorun's communication officers began receiving reports from assembly worlds. Human ships were appearing everywhere. Not warships. Aid ships. Medical vessels. Engineering crews. Teachers. Doctors. Builders. On the plague-ravaged world of Kesher, human doctors were distributing vaccines that could save millions. On the war-torn moon of Threx, human engineers were rebuilding cities that had been rubble for centuries. On the dying homeworld of the Villani people, a species the Assembly had abandoned generations ago, human scientists were purifying poisoned water and planting seeds in dead soil. "What is this?" Vorun demanded. "What are you doing?" "We are doing what we do best," Minji said. "We are adapting. We are growing. We are learning." She smiled, though he could not see it. "But not to destroy you. To help you." Vorun looked at the reports flooding his screens. Across the galaxy, condemned humanity was saving lives, on world after world. The species the Assembly had voted to exterminate was healing wounds that the great civilizations had ignored for centuries. "You cannot do this," Vorun said. His voice was shaking now. "This is not how it works. This is not what threatened species do." "You are right," Minji said. "This is not what threatened species do. This is what humans do." She let the silence stretch between them. "Your fleet is still pointed at Earth, Commander. You can still burn our world. You can still kill every man, woman, and child who ever lived. But you cannot undo what we have already started. Even if you destroy us today, the galaxy will remember that when humanity faced extinction, we answered with open hands." Vorun sat in his command chair for a long time. His officers waited for orders. The 12,000 ships waited for commands. The entire galaxy held its breath. And for the first time in 17 cleansing operations, Vorun did not know what to do. The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly had not been this full in 1,000 years. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy had come to witness what many believed would be the end of an era. The air was thick with tension and the smell of fear. High Chancellor Vorun stood at the center of the chamber. He had been promoted after the cleansing fleet commander had refused to fire on Earth. That commander was now in prison, charged with treason against the Assembly. But the damage was already done. 18 months, Vorun said, his voice echoing through the hall. 18 months since the humans were condemned to death. And in that time, they have made fools of us all. He gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. They showed images from across the galaxy. Human ships delivering food to starving worlds. Human doctors curing diseases that had killed millions. Human teachers sharing knowledge with species that had been left to rot in ignorance. They have infiltrated 73 assembly worlds, Vorun continued. They have provided aid to 212 non-aligned species. They have given away technology worth more than our entire treasury. And they have done all of this without asking for anything in return. A murmur ran through the assembly. Some representatives looked angry. Others looked confused. A few, in the back rows, looked almost hopeful. "This is an invasion," Vorun declared. "Not of weapons, but of kindness. They are buying loyalty with charity. They are stealing our allies with generosity. They are tearing this assembly apart without firing a single shot." He pointed at the image of a human aid worker carrying a sick child on a distant world. "This must stop. The cleansing fleet must complete its mission. Earth must burn." "With respect, High Chancellor," a voice said from the gallery, "Earth has already won." Every eye in the chamber turned to see Commander Do-Hyun Shin standing in the visitors section. He wore the uniform of Earth's diplomatic fleet. Clean. White. With no weapons visible. He looked calm, almost peaceful, despite being surrounded by beings who had voted to kill his species. "You were not invited to speak," Vorun said coldly. "No," Do-Hyun agreed. "But I have something to show you. Something that might change your minds about the nature of humanity." He pressed a button on his wrist, and new holographic images filled the chamber. These were not pictures of aid workers or doctors. They were blueprints. Schematics. Technical drawings of machines that made no sense to most of the beings present. But the scientists in the room recognized what they were seeing, and they began to scream. "This is a gravitational compressor," Do-Hyun said, pointing to the first blueprint. "One device can collapse a star into a black hole. My people invented this technology 3 years ago." He pointed to the second. "This is a dimensional tear generator. It opens holes in the fabric of space. Anything that enters is erased from existence. We finished designing this 18 months ago." He pointed to the third. "This is a cascade bomb. It can sterilize 100 light years in every direction. We built our first working prototype 6 months ago." The chamber was in chaos now. Representatives were shouting, crying, trying to flee. Vorun stood frozen, his face pale with terror. "You were right to fear us," Do-hyun said. His voice was quiet, but somehow it cut through the noise. "You were right that we grow too fast. You were right that we would develop weapons beyond your imagination." He looked directly at Vorun. "You were right about everything except one thing. You assumed that because we could destroy you, we would." He pressed another button, and the weapon schematics disappeared. In their place appeared images of the human aid missions across the galaxy, doctors and teachers and builders doing the work that the assembly had neglected for centuries. "We chose not to," Do-hyun said. "We had every reason to be monsters. Your assembly condemned us to death for the crime of being too good at surviving. If we had rained fire on your worlds, history would have said we were justified." He shook his head. "But that is not who we want to be. So we built the weapons. And then we built something better instead. We built hope." The chamber had gone quiet. Even Vorun had nothing to say. 18 months ago, you sent a fleet to kill us," Do-hyun continued. "Since then, we have saved more lives than your assembly has saved in the last 1,000 years. We have rebuilt worlds you abandoned. We have cured diseases you ignored. We have fed children you left to starve." He spread his hands. "You can still destroy Earth. Your fleet is still out there. But you cannot destroy what we have started. The galaxy has already seen what humanity can be, and many of them are choosing to stand with us." As if on cue, representatives began to rise from their seats. First one, then a dozen, then hundreds. They walked out of the chamber, turning their backs on the assembly that had ruled them for millennia. "The Villani people withdraw from the Galactic Assembly," one announced. "We stand with humanity. The colonies of Keshar withdraw. We stand with humanity. The free worlds of the Outer Reach withdraw. We stand with humanity." One by one, they declared themselves. By the time the chamber emptied, over 300 species had left. The greatest political body in the history of the galaxy was fracturing before Vorun's eyes. Do-hyun watched them go with tears in his eyes. He thought of Junho Lee, the young captain who had first asked the impossible question. He thought of Min-ji Kwon, who had faced 12,000 warships with nothing but words. He thought of Admiral Yuna Park, who had carried the death sentence home and never lost hope. "This is not the end, human," Vorun said. His voice was bitter and cold. "The assembly will survive, and we will remember this betrayal." Do-hyun nodded. "Maybe. But the galaxy will remember something else. They will remember that when humanity faced extinction, we chose to save you instead of destroy you." He turned to leave. "That is a lesson that will outlast any empire." 50 years had passed since the day the galaxy voted to destroy Earth. 50 years since Ambassador Min-ji Kwon faced 12,000 warships with nothing but an open hand. 50 years since Commander Do-hyun Shin revealed humanity's terrible weapons and its decision not to use them. The galaxy was unrecognizable now. The old Galactic Assembly had collapsed 15 years ago. Its last members had fought among themselves, clinging to power that no longer existed. When the final vote was cast to dissolve, only 23 species remained. The rest had already left to join something new. The United Stellar Accord had taken its place. It was not an empire. It was not ruled by fear or force. It was a partnership, built on a simple promise. Every species would help every other species. No exceptions. No conditions. No one left behind. Humans were not its rulers. They had refused that role, even when it was offered. Instead, they served as teachers, healers, and bridges. When ancient enemies could not speak to each other, humans translated. When old wounds refused to heal, humans mediated. When hope seemed lost, humans found a way. Elder Hana Yoon stood at the podium of the New Galactic Forum. She was 97 years old now, her hair white as snow, her face lined with age and wisdom. She had been a young diplomat when the verdict was announced. She had watched Min-ji Kwon's broadcast from a refugee camp on Mars. where humanity had been preparing for the worst. Now she looked out at an audience of 10,000 beings from 500 worlds. Behind her, a holographic display showed the broadcast reaching billions more across the galaxy. This was the 50th anniversary of the verdict, and she had been asked to give the memorial address. I was 27 years old when the assembly voted to kill us. She began. Her voice was soft, but the amplifiers carried it to every corner of the forum. I remember the fear. I remember the anger. I remember looking up at the stars and wondering if they would be the last thing I ever saw. She paused, letting the memory wash over her. I also remember a young captain named Yoon-ho Lee. He had lost his family in the first contact skirmishes. He had every reason to want revenge. Instead, he asked a question that changed everything. A murmur ran through the audience. Everyone knew the story now. It was taught in schools across the galaxy. The human question, they called it. The moment when one young officer dared to imagine something different. We did not know if it would work, Hana continued. We did not know if we would survive. We only knew that we did not want to become the monsters they feared. And so, we chose to be something else. She gestured at the audience around her. Look at us now. 500 species, gathered in peace. Worlds that warred for millennia now trade and grow together. Diseases that killed billions have been cured. Children who would have starved are alive and thriving. Her eyes grew bright with tears. This is what humanity chose. This is the answer we gave when the galaxy asked what kind of threat we would become. She pressed a button, and the holographic display changed. It showed an old document, yellowed and faded, written in a language few beings could still read. Last year, historians found something in the archives of the old assembly, she said. A minority report from the original vote. It was written by an unnamed scientist who studied human behavior. She read from the document. If the humans are threatened with extinction, standard models predict they will respond with violence in 94.7% of scenarios. However, there is a small probability, less than 1%, that they will respond with what can only be described as radical compassion. In this scenario, humans would attempt to save the species, threatening them, even at great cost to themselves. This outcome is statistically insignificant and should not factor into assembly decisions. Hana set down the document. Statistically insignificant. That is what they called our kindness. That is what they thought of our hope. She looked out at the audience. Humans and aliens sat side by side, some holding hands, some crying, all united in a way the old assembly could never have imagined. The galaxy bet against us. They bet that we would be afraid, angry, violent. They bet that we would prove them right. She smiled. They have never been so happy to lose. The applause began slowly, then built like a wave. Beings from hundreds of worlds rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, crying. The sound filled the forum and echoed across the stars. In the front row, an old woman watched with tears streaming down her face. Her name was Minji Kwan, and she was 102 years old now. Beside her sat Do-hyun Shin, 98, his hair gone and his hands trembling with age. They had both lived long enough to see the world they had helped create. Somewhere in the crowd, a young child tugged on her mother's sleeve. She was half human, half Villani, a combination that would have been impossible 50 years ago. Mama, the child asked, why did the old people want to hurt the humans? Her mother looked down at her with love in her eyes. Because they were afraid, little one. They did not understand that different does not mean dangerous. But the humans helped everyone anyway? Yes, they did. The child thought about this for a moment. That was very brave. Her mother nodded. Yes, it was. As the ceremony ended and the crowds began to disperse, Elder Hana Yoon stood alone on the stage for a moment. She looked up at the stars, the same stars she had feared as a young woman. The same stars that now felt like home. We did it, Junho, she whispered to the ghost of a young captain who had asked the impossible question. We showed them what we could be. Somewhere out there, among the billions of beings whose lives had been touched by humanity's choice, the answer echoed back. Not in words, but in the simple fact of their existence. In every child who lived, every disease that was cured, every war that was ended, the galaxy had decided Earth should die. Humanity had responded by teaching it how to live.